George Bruno with the 21 Report. We're at the 21 Convention, the final event of the decade, and I'm talking with Tanner Guzy. Welcome.
Thanks, George.
Yeah.
It's fun to be back.
How'd it go today?
I feel like it went well. It was fun to veer away from. I didn't talk about style stuff today. Yeah, I got to talk about how important it is that we are agents of action as opposed to objects that are acted upon. Because one of the things that I've found over the years that we've been doing this kind of stuff, or our time talking about, you read blogs and you get involved with all this stuff, and a lot of guys get caught in this kind of analysis paralysis, or how do I pursue this, or what's my perfect plan, or anything. And so you can't think your way into being a better version of yourself. You just have to act. You have to do stuff. And most of us, a lot of guys get scared. And I think that's one of the big differences between the kind of guys who become the speakers and then become the kind of people that other men want to kind of eventually, aspire to be like, is that these are the guys who are actually doing things as opposed to just theorizing or talking about them.
What's interesting is I'm finding guys are showing up at these conventions now with suits on. Mm-hmm. Have you seen like some really well-dressed men out there? I mean, they're dressed pretty tight.
Right. Yeah, and it's fun because you get a couple guys. I've noticed a few this time around that are doing suits and doing them well.
Yeah.
And you also have a lot of guys who are doing casual stuff, but they're also doing that well too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot when it comes to, and even the guys who, from an execution standpoint, aren't necessarily doing great, to their credit, you can tell that they're trying, that they're putting some energy and some effort into it, as opposed to just, I don't know, I grabbed the 4 shirts and the 1 pair of cargo shorts that I just threw those in the suitcase, and I'm just going to wear whatever today. It's whatever's on top of the suitcase.
Yeah.
That was, the bar's been raised by these guys, and it's been fun to see.
Yeah. What was the goal of your talk today?
To get guys to stop theorizing, to start doing something, to stop being afraid of action, to stop being afraid of failure, to realize that rationality and a perfect plan and being able to fully think everything out and all that, it's just paralysis if you don't actually do anything with it. Yeah, because I'm that way. I was that way for years. In fact, my buddy Ryan Mickler, who runs a site called Order of Man, he's the one who really turned me onto this idea. You just have to execute. Mm-hmm. And basically just sharing from my own experience, maybe in a selfish way, just kind of like reminding myself that it's like, don't wait for things to be perfect, because they're never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Don't wait until you have a plan that has 100% surety, or maybe even 85% surety, or even it's an error to think we can even quantify that level of surety. You can't, right? You just have to act. You just have to try, and that means a lot of times you're going to fail. And then you have to be mature enough and intelligent enough to be able to try, okay, well, why did I fail, and what didn't work, and did I just not give enough time, or did I do this wrong? And you just have to be willing to get into the arena and pivot and exchange and play from there.
What is the role of fashion, smart fashion sense, changing your image in a man's life? What is the role of that in his life?
That's a good question. That's a fun one, because a lot of men will assume that it's a way to affect the way that other people see us. And that's a real thing. Most guys, sadly, will, I was just dealing with somebody on this about this on Twitter the other day, where it was yesterday. He says, I don't care what I want, but if a girl's worth it, I'm going to put on a button-up shirt for her. And then what I said, what a castrated way to look at your appearance.
Right.
Because the idea that the only reason you should care about the way that you look is to impress a woman is pretty sad and pretty silly.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's the idea of how do you send the right kind of signals that you want to send, and how do you communicate with other people? And that's important. That works from a perspective of demonstrating the tactical virtues, things like courage, strength, mastery, and honor. But I think the real important one, and this is one that my clients really experience as we work together, one of the things that I've realized for myself, you can tell me if this is your own experience, is style is kind of a placebo that we can administer to ourselves. Mm-hmm. When you think about the placebo effect, where physically something doesn't change, but because you believe something is different, you start to feel and act and respond differently. Yeah. A good example of this from Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy, is he talks about the bravery placebo, where you look at war chants and the beating of the drums and the brothers in arms and the camaraderie and the medals and all this other stuff. And it's a way to get men brave enough to go out and do something
Sure.
that's dangerous and risky, right? It is a placebo. It changes their internal state of being
Sure.
as a result of all these other kind of disconnected, maybe nebulous things.
Yeah.
That's what style is.
Yeah.
It's a self-placebo to make you feel like I am capable of becoming what the most aspirational version of myself is.
Interesting.
That's why kids play dress up.
Yeah.
Right? My son doesn't put on a Spider-Man costume at 5 years old because he wants to impress the girl down the street.
Right.
Or because he wants the other kids there
Yeah,
to think
yeah.
that he's cool. He does it because it makes him feel like he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's placebing himself by putting on this costume, and we forget that as we get older. And what we don't realize is we actually placebo ourselves. It's a self-placebo into self-placation. Of, well, I've just arrived. I just want to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And if your main aesthetic goal, if your main clothing goal is to be comfortable, then that triggers your mindset into thinking, that's all I want to do in anything else. Comfort is now my main pursuit. That's the thing I'm the most interested in.
I think when I first met you, we talked about don't sacrifice style on the altar of comfort.
Yeah, exactly. And most men do. Most men do, sadly, because they just have all these kind of bogus and erroneous ideas about why we care. It's vain, or it's feminine, or it's gay, or it's whatever
Yeah.
other reasons. That was one of the things I talked about in my presentation today is we live in a world where as men we've delegated all beauty to women. Women are responsible for how beautiful our homes are, or they're allowed to talk about beauty.
Yeah.
And the only way that we as men can appreciate beauty is from the sexualization of the beauty of women.
Interesting.
You know, you'd have guys who would, you can't talk about how a woman is in her 60s and she's beautiful because, well, she's past her sexual prime. It's like,
Right.
no. There's beauty beyond just sexual beauty.
Yeah.
And there's beauty beyond just person-to-person
Yeah.
beauty. And the idea that we should make our buildings and our bodies and our appearance and everything else more beautiful, and there will be people who watch this and cringe thinking about that because they take the sexualization and the effeminization of that, and that's not the way man's relationship has been with beauty for generations
Yeah.
until just fairly recently. Tell me that Michelangelo or that Da Vinci or all these other architects or artists or all these other creators, the men who would make their cannons, these beautiful things, or their armor into these intricate pieces of work, that they're doing it to get laid or
Right.
because they were into other dudes.
Right.
It's a ridiculous
Right.
idea. Beauty has value in and of itself, and men need to appreciate beauty more.
Yeah. And it doesn't end. Beauty evolves.
Absolutely.
The wall, I think there's too much teaching on the wall.
Right. Yeah, and even that idea of, well, somebody's lost their sexual market value in one regard means that they've lost their inherent human value in every regard.
Right.
Is stupid.
Right.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I triggered a bunch of people not too long ago when I said something like a woman. I made some comment where I said like 60-year-old women are beautiful, just something like that. Because I think if a woman takes care of herself, not unlike men, if you take care of yourself and you age gracefully, there's a beauty there.
There is.
And
we've lost that because we fetishize youth, because we sexualize everything.
Yeah.
And the idea that my wife and my daughters are going to have to feel like, okay, my wife, she's had 4 kids.
Yeah.
Her body's different. She takes fantastic care of herself, and her
Yeah.
body is still different.
Yes.
Right? The idea that she's lost her beauty because she's not the same as she was when she was 21 and I first
Yeah.
married her, and that I somehow have tricked myself
Yeah.
into thinking that because she's beautiful now and it's not the same kind of beauty, that, well, I'm just rationalizing that and I'm just
Yeah.
pissed off because she's not the same, nubile virgin, blah blah blah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The idea that the only value is sexual value, the only beauty is sexual beauty,
Yeah.
is such a limited and non like slang but literal like retarded way. You're retarding yourself when you
Yes.
think about things that
Absolutely.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I get kind of. Actually, now I'm at the point where I laugh at when I start hearing things like the epiphany phase and hitting the wall and past her prime and this kind of stuff, and that applies to men. Men age like wine, women age like milk. Or
I see
something.
plenty of men who age like milk and plenty of women who age like
Exactly.
wine. Yeah.
It's all on an individual basis.
Right. Well, what's sad is the culture has really engaged in that. I think a lot of guys are right for calling that out, in that we're a culture that we deal with sex as a currency, and that's the main
Yeah.
way that we interact with each
Yeah.
other. And if your value is only sexual, then you do hit a wall.
Yeah.
Or you do go through an epiphany phase.
Yeah.
And it's sad and pathetic and disgusting and every other epithet I can throw at it,
Right.
that's the culture that we live in,
Right.
because people are way more valuable than just their sexual value.
Absolutely. What is your, if I say the word dad bod, to you, what, react to that?
Dad bod is complacency. Dad bod is I've stopped aspiring. Dad bod is I've arrived and I can just rest on my laurels. Dad bod is I'm looking for excuses. Dad bod is I don't believe that I can be or that I should be aspirational for my children. So dad bod is kind of a manifestation of everything that is the enemy. That doesn't mean you have to be jacked and shredded and tan.
Yeah.
Right? But it does mean that you should be able to. I love the way that Alexander has talked about fitness this weekend, because we look at fitness again like sex or anything else, where we just get into this very microscopic, limited view of it. Is fitness is aesthetic and it's abs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you've got great abs, but you can't actually have kids because you've killed your testosterone,
Right.
are you actually fit?
Right.
Or you can't play with your kids because you're hungry all the time and you're hangry all the time and cranky because you're down to that shredded level. Does that actually count as fitness? And so dad bod isn't even necessarily an aesthetic manifestation, even though it obviously shows up that way, but it's my body now gets in the way of my being my best self and being the best version of a father I can be, as opposed to being a tool that contributes to that.
I remember hearing him talk about you can be just a great looking body and nothing else.
Yeah.
And he came to that epiphany in his own life where there was nothing more than that.
Right.
He was just like a good looking guy with a nice bod. And as soon as he realized that, that's when the depth started. And things changed for him.
Right. And what's cool is that he didn't have to sacrifice his body to do it.
Right.
Because a lot of people get into this kind of mutual exclusivity of you can be intelligent or you can be athletic.
Yeah.
And they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
We can be both.
Right.
In fact, my experience has been as I've gotten in better shape, it's improved my intelligence. It's improved my ability to relate to other people. It's improved my own self-assurance. It's made me better as a father. It's made me better with business. It's made me better spiritually. Our bodies they're beautiful tools, and it's sad the way that we abuse them, whether that's our brains or the rest of our bodies, but we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see for the future of the 21 convention? What kind of trajectory are we on now? We both agree that there's been a pivot.
Right.
What do you see the future looking like?
That's a fun question too, because I've been here. I mean, now for this one, other than Anthony, I've been here longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of wild to think about. And I know he had other guys who were with him for longer periods than I've been, but I'm kind of the old guard, and I've been through now two transitions or two pivots as far as how this goes. I'm really optimistic about this one because it's important to understand how we relate to women. It is, and I understand why so many guys focus on that. I understand why so many guys come into this idea of masculinity and being a man in search of that. I get that, and it's valuable. You can't exist, you can't thrive without having relationships with women.
Right.
It's not the only thing. And it's been so fun to be able to be here this weekend and hear guys talk about masculine self-development in ways that have little to do or nothing to do with how do I get a woman or women in general to approve of me or validate me. But it's a bigger and a deeper mission. It's more meaningful than that. And again, it doesn't come at the exclusion of this. Again, what most guys will find is if I'm good at these things, then a lot of it bleeds over into this other stuff too.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing it go deeper, and I hope that it continues to go deeper. It continues to get more noble. It continues to get more meaningful and more impactful. And in a way, it gets to be something that is more inclusive, but not inclusive the way that most of us hear that and kind of cringe at it. Inclusive in that you don't compromise on the ideals, but you just expand on the way that other people see that they can relate to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Socrates talking about how to change a diaper.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, looking at him in disbelief. I'm sitting in the back there. I think I was sitting, yeah, I'm sitting in the last row, and I'm like, he's actually teaching men, literally teaching men how to change a diaper.
Yeah.
And I told him in the interview, I think that that's appropriate because a lot of guys don't have kids. And he's establishing himself as the expert in, like he's a very conscious parent because he
Right.
had his first kid at 48.
Right.
So I'm sure he was walking on eggshells and, you know, can I do this? Can I pull this thing off?
Uh-huh.
And with all of that data going through the Socrates brain and then watching it get interpreted and then communicated like that, I never heard a man talk about competency in changing a diaper. And information, you know, diffuses your fear about those things. And I think style and fashion is the same way.
Right.
It's not the domain of the gay guy. It's not the domain of the effeminate guy. It's not the domain of some expert.
Right.
Joe, you know, Dickies or Carhartt can actually, you know, change his style and change his life.
Right.
Like your son becomes Spider-Man when he puts on a Spider-Man suit. You should have seen in Poland when Jack Donovan showed up in a suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we worked back and forth on that before he even got it commissioned and everything.
It was amazing.
Powerful, huh?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
He became Spider-Man, so to speak.
Yes.
I mean, literally, it was.
He became the Bond villain he's always wanted to be.
It really was. And he played the part, and it worked
Right,
for him.
because again, it's that self-placebo.
Yeah.
Where he feels different when he's in that.
Yeah.
And you act differently, you respond differently, you think differently.
And everybody was complimenting him.
Oh, I
Because
bet.
we didn't, you know, no one ever expected that.
Right.
I was like, wait a minute. That's Jack Donovan's head on this suit. Like,
Well, and what's fun is he did it well.
yeah.
Because it's not he didn't look like Michael Scott, you know, where so I guess I have to wear a suit. I'm going to go pick one up at Jose Bank where it's, you know, $5 for $1.
Yeah,
And
right.
hope that it fits me well
Right.
or anything else. Like, no, he did it well. He did it custom. We talked about what kind of things he was going to get. And so it was very intentional. And that's what made it work.
It really worked.
Yeah.
It really worked. And everyone saw that it worked and was very vocal about it. So I think it reinforced it with him. Because I was expecting, you know, like the Under Armour shirt, you know, with the cuffs and the, you know.
Yeah, which is what he's done this weekend.
And that's his, you know,
Right.
that's his.
That's his typical uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But he did act different. I should have brought that up in my interview with him.
Rib him about it a little bit. Yeah.
It was fascinating.
Yeah.
All right, clothes make the man, muscles make the clothes. What do you think about that? I heard someone say that.
Okay, I like that because I've experienced this myself where I kind of look back, and I hope that this is always the case, and this again goes to this idea of you have to act. Because when I look back, I first started writing masculine style about 8 years ago, okay? And I go back and I look at my pictures that I was trying to do, and you're trying to model right, and you don't know how to do it, and you're trying to dress well, and you don't really know how to do it. And there's little like 155-pound skinny fat me with these noodle arms and everything. And I look back and you just kind of go, how was I writing this? Like, what was I thinking that I'm putting this kind of content out?
Yeah.
And it's different now when I've put on about 30 pounds, and thankfully most of that's muscle since then. And you carry yourself differently, your clothes hang differently, and your presence, your timbre, everything changes as a result of that. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, why Jack looked really good in a suit, because you take this contrast principle. And again, it's the idea of not just being one-dimensional, it's being multifaceted. We think, again, you can have a body or you can have brains. You can have this brute, raw, violent masculinity, or you can have a sense of aesthetics and art and style and appreciation for creation and design and all those things. And then when you take people who have a body that the way that it's built and the way that they carry it and the way that they are within it, that it talks about things like strength and violence and this more kind of raw carnal masculinity. And then you clothe it with things that are representative of civilization and art and personality. All of a sudden you go from being very one-dimensional to being a three-dimensional person. and it makes it so much more visually interesting. It makes you so much more compelling, and you feel more complete that way because you're able to have both aspects when you see yourself in the mirror or when you see that you're interacting with somebody else. It's a powerful thing. So absolutely, I would agree with both of those.
Fitted clothing. If all a man does is start purchasing fitted clothing, that can change his life.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that the caveat to that is it's a great place to start, but don't stop there.
Yeah.
A lot of guys stop there, and this is one of the things that I experience a lot. A lot of the guys who I bring on as my coaching clients will start this process, and they will get stuff that fits, and they'll feel a little bit better in it, and they'll recognize it, but maybe some of the stuff they still decide that they're not going to wear. Or they overcorrect and they go to things that are so skinny that they don't fit anymore in that regard either. Or all these, and so it's a great place to start. But fit is not the only thing that matters. You have to be able to understand the context. You have to be able to know what you're communicating. You have to be able to understand how to create that balance between raw, violent masculinity and more civilized, disciplined masculinity and all these other things. And fit is not the only tool in your toolkit, but it's an important one, and it's one of the best ones to start off with. Yeah.
Would you say that James Bond is a superhero? I would say he is.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just because for me there weren't any real superpowers, so I guess we'd have to define what superhero is.
Yeah.
Is there any? Because there's nothing supernatural about him.
Right.
And so for me, I would say no, but he's certainly aspirational.
Aspirational.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and a well-dressed guy, too.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of, again, it's that multidimensional, and that's part of the persona.
Yeah.
Because if he weren't James Bond, 007 secret agent, he were James Bond accountant, then the suit really doesn't matter that much.
Right, right.
But it's because you have the balance of those two variables that it lends credibility to his concern for aesthetics and how it fits into the rest of his world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think being British has anything to
Oh,
do
of
with
course
that?
it does. Of course it does.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, when you think about my wife and I were joking about this. She was dropping me off at the airport yesterday. We're listening to, the kids are all in the back. It's 7:30 in the morning. My kids are sleepy and tired, and we're listening to, they listen to podcasts that are, stories for kids.
Yeah.
And in one of them, there's this little girl who's doing kind of the intro, and she's got this cute little British accent. And my wife and I both just look at each other and say, why is that so appealing?
Yeah.
What is it about it that's so appealing? But it denotes class, it denotes civilization, it denotes authority. That's all been ingrained into us because of our heritage and what our relationship with the empire and everything else was. And I think that there is a certain association with that, as opposed if he had a Cockney accent, or if he was Welsh, or if he were Southern or anything else like that, it would be very different.
Yeah, it's different. So what do you see now as the future for men now that we have a more balanced approach? Like, I could care less what a man's pickup ability is in a shit hits the fan scenario.
Right.
The alpha in that situation, the alpha male is a guy who can start a fire with no matches.
Right. It's not the guy who's got the smoothest approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, what is a well-balanced man?
Well, yeah, because I guess the question related to that is, are we even in this apocalyptic scenario where we're doing? Because in that case, I'm screwed. I'm working on getting better.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm still not there yet. As much as I'm working on all my proficiency that would translate over into that, I'm not there. But I think a well-balanced man is somebody who, again, can dive a little bit deeper, who can not look at it as, because that's what's so funny to me about this idea of the alpha, which even that term, things, you graduate and kind of move beyond that.
Yeah.
But the most masculine man, the one who's the most aspirational, the alpha, is that way because he's the most attractive to other women. That their being attracted to him is what grants him that status. And that's putting the cart before the horse. They're attracted to him because he has that status. It's not that he has that status because they're attracted to him. And so I think you're right. In most situations, other than one in which the only thing that we have to, when you think about how easy our lives are from a material standpoint, from a survival standpoint, What else do we have other than this spiritual warfare and trying to figure out how we're going to attract members of the opposite sex?
Yeah.
So of course that's what guys are going to look at. But in any other situation, it's going to be very different. Whether that's a physical change or it's very different when you become a father. Your ability to pick up multiple chicks has no real impact on what your kids are going to turn out to be.
Right.
And so a continued focus on that for your own self-justified masturbatory purposes of, hey, I've still got it,
Yeah.
but it comes at the expense and the exclusion of my kids,
Yeah.
is childish and wasted and foolish.
Do you care if women are attracted to you now?
I do. Yeah. I'm bugged that I care about that,
Yeah.
but I do. And I don't know if that's, and I don't even know if that's something that I should care about. And I think that is a temptation for a lot of men where it's, do I still have it?
Yeah.
Could I still do it? Because I know my wife's attracted to me.
Yeah.
I know my kids love me and look up to me. And there are a lot of guys who would feel like that's enough. And I don't know, just being totally open and honest, which obviously this is what these interviews are for.
Yeah.
But it does, I still do think about it. But I don't think about it like I did before I was happily married.
Right.
It doesn't drive me. It doesn't define me. I don't need that validation the same way that I did before I realized I didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you coach a man, let's talk about your business.
Yeah.
Who is your ideal client?
My ideal client, that's fun because it's not necessarily somebody, I work with married guys, I work with single guys, I work with guys who are in the middle of a divorce or just getting finished with one. I work with guys from blue collar and white collar businesses, young guys, old guys, whatever. My ideal client is somebody who is a self-optimizer. It's somebody who recognizes that if I can get my finances and my fitness and my relationships and all of these other variables in my life dialed up and turned up, and then I realize, crap, I should probably care about my clothing too, because everything else is here, and then my clothes are still down here where I was in college or in high school, and it's this glaring hole. And I love working with those guys, especially when they don't quite realize that by turning this one up, it brings the others up as well.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's somebody who, I don't like working with menswear guys. They're a pain to work with because they've got strong opinions and they're usually wrong. I don't like working with guys who, as much as I love to try to help guys who are kind of struggling and they need some early wins, I don't like them as clients because they put too much emphasis. You shouldn't be putting your money or your time on style. You should be putting it on something that has more meaning than that. But other guys who are already killing it or starting to kill it in other arenas and they really want to optimize everything else, those are the guys I love working with.
Excellent. How can people find you?
So the best way is you can go to masculine-style.com. That's where you can go. You can even take a quiz to figure out what of my style archetypes, which is a way to just kind of understand how style will work for you individually. You can go there and take that. It'll get you onto my mailing list. And then as far as social media is concerned, I'm most active on Twitter and on Instagram, and both of those are at Tanner Guzy. I also have another thing going on with a buddy of mine where we're talking about this idea, again, of being more than just one-dimensional, because style is a big thing. That's my business. That's what it's built on. But we're doing a thing called Project M, where we challenge ourselves every month to do something new. Right now, we're taking the Air Marshal pistol test. Yeah. We've done things where we've done the U.S. Marine Corps physical tests. We're going to be doing, we're going to learn how to hunt. We're going to learn how to fish. At some point, because neither one of us want to do it, we're going to do a stand-up comedy set and see if we can get good at doing that.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of putting ourselves in, not in like uncomfortable, awkward, impractical joker, make everybody cringe type of uncomfortable situations, but situations where we have to grow and we have to step up and we have to act. And so, go check out Project M. We're on YouTube and we've got a podcast and stuff like that too. So
I love it. So it's just you and someone else?
Yeah, me and a buddy of mine, and he's a normie. He's not in all of this. He's not in the masculine stuff. I mean, he is, but he's not a content creator in another way. And that was very much by design because a lot of the audience that we're going for with those guys are just kind of regular guys who realize that complacency is a killer.
What's the goal of Project M?
For us to be better versions of ourselves, and then hopefully invite other guys along the way to have some fun while they do it.
So you're kind of testing it out on yourself
first.
First.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is we want it to be fun. Because there are other guys who do, you look at like the Art of Manliness, you look at Order of Man, you look at what's going on with 21 Convention. masculinity and manhood are very serious things, and they should be treated seriously. Sure. And you should also be able to have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And I'm a serious person. I'm a pretty uptight person. And so for me to do this with a friend of mine and to do it in a way where we're making fools out of ourselves because we suck at things, but we're having fun as we're learning how to do it and everything else. We're trying to do it in a way that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more lighthearted too.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's fun.
So where do you see it going a year from now?
No idea. That's part of it, and that's part of what I was saying in my speech today is I don't have a perfect plan.
Right.
I have no idea what a perfect plan. Maybe in 2 years this is going to be more important to me than masculine style.
Yeah.
And I'll have a way figured out how to monetize it.
Sure.
Maybe we don't have any audience and we just keep doing it for us. Maybe it's some of 1 million different things in between. I don't know, and I don't need to know. Mm-hmm. All I need to know is we're having fun doing it, and we're also going to be willing to change direction if and when the opportunity presents itself, and we're going to try, and some things we're going to suck at and some things we're going to get good at, and we're going to be very transparent along the way as we go through all that, because we need to be more action oriented, and we want other guys to be more action oriented.
And you're doing this in a fishbowl where people can see
exactly. And that's part of that is so that we can remove the fear for these other people, because we're really doing it and embarrassing ourselves, and it's not that big of a deal. We're not really that embarrassed.
Yeah.
The consequences aren't really that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's fun.
I like it. Tanner Guzy, thank you.
Thanks, George.
Absolutely. What was your experience so far with the 21 convention?
Oh, outstanding. Outstanding.
Professional all across the board. Really good energy with a lot of people, and I just like it because it's a very positive direction.
This, George, this has been a first-class event.
It's fantastic. You guys run a really tight ship. I've been to a lot of conventions over the course of my business career, and I can tell when things are well run and when things aren't, and this is a very well-run operation. I was very impressed.
It's pretty incredible to see where Anthony's brought it, especially from last year, which was my first year here, and to see the upgrades he's made has been incredible.
I've got my notebook, and with every speaker, I've written down about 2 or 3 lines under each of the speakers of just the key prime stuff that I got. That's good. That's good.
It's very surreal, man. I'm really enjoying it. I'm happy to live in such an era where such a thing like this is possible.
I have never seen a group of guys like this, a group of 200 men who are focused, squared away, they're working on their values. Just never met a bigger group of wonderful guys.
It's kind of neat because I've been to a fair amount of conventions in my day, but you never see one where the guys like here you can just see Ed Lattimore talking to Tanner about boxing.
Yeah.
You just sit down and then you tell your boxing experiences. Everybody's kind of pinging off each other. It's nice.
It has been fantastic, and it's been 4 days of guys all on the same page, working in the same direction.
Fascinating meeting some of the people, hearing their stories. You got people traveling from other parts of the world to come here just to see some of the speakers. That's amazing.
The thing that's impressed me is everybody here is very serious.
Yeah.
They're taking it, close to their heart.
What a great convention.
Thanks, George.